Hey everybody, it's low carb and keto nutrition specialist Amy Berger from 2itnutrition.com bringing you once again keto without the crazy. Remember to check out all the links below in the notes. I have links to some of the in-person low carb and keto events that I will be speaking at, and also information about joining me on Patreon. If you want a weekly live chat with me, you can check out the Patreon details. Also, I'm the author of 3 books, links to everything below. Okay, on to the topic. I have done some videos recently, and not quite so recently, on food addiction, compulsive overeating, self-sabotage, and a while back I did a video on red, yellow, and green light foods. So I'll link to all that stuff below. But I want to talk a little more about why we have to have red light foods. Red light meaning stop, do not pass go, like no entry. You cannot have this food. And you know, I did that video on what I call alcoholic foods, which are the same thing. Foods that you cannot have ever. They just have to be out of your life. They can't be on the menu. They can't come into your house. Of course, if you live with other people, it's more difficult. Somebody else might have them, but we have to have these hard lines in the sand that we do not cross. And even with, you know, in the red light, red, yellow, green light video, and in my alcoholic food video, I mentioned that for me personally, I don't really have issues with carbs anymore. I've been eating low carb and keto for so long that like I don't really miss the carbs that much. For me, I can massively binge, massively overeat on foods that we would consider perfectly fine for keto, you know? So it's not even just that it's carbs, but why do we have to take this hard stance with ourselves? Well, I would like to just show you briefly this book called Fork in the Road, and it's written mostly by Jen Unwin. She's out of the UK, but it's kind of a team effort. If you know the name Georgia Eade, she's an MD, she's a psychiatrist. My friend David Wolf, who is a registered dietitian but low carb, keto friendly, and a whole bunch of other people, people with their own personal stories of food addiction, binge eating, eating disorders, and so, and many of them are medical or nutrition professionals. Anyway, the point is, I want to read you just a couple of quick things from this book. You can get this book on Amazon. I'll put a link. It's a little pricey because it's actually full color, and they have some really nice recipes, and all the pictures are, you know, full color. And to be completely honest with you, if you are not new to low carb and keto, if you've been doing this a while, you're probably not going to learn a whole lot that's new to you. Like, this book isn't going to blow your mind. But if you want kind of reassurance that so many other people, people that you may respect and hold in very high regard in the keto world, have been through their own journey of food addiction, binge eating, compulsive eating, all that stuff, then this would definitely show you that you are not alone. And this book also does cover, you know, very sort of, I would briefly, very, just enough to inform you without hitting you over the head with a ton of science and biochemistry. They do talk about dopamine and serotonin and all those brain chemicals, and why we find certain foods so hard to stop eating, and certain compulsions and behaviors, even when we know they're harmful for us, we still do them. So, and if I'm not mistaken, all proceeds from this book, Jen Unwin is donating them to the PHC UK, which is the Public Health Collaboration of the UK, and they have they're a great repository for low carb and keto research and resources and all that stuff. So she's not even making a dime off this, which is nice. So let me read to you just 2 little things, and then we'll kind of discuss with the hard lines in the sand and those red light alcoholic foods. Carbohydrate addicts should not put their faith in willpower, however determined they are to succeed. How many times have you put your faith in your own willpower? How many times? I'll just resist. I'll keep it in the cupboard, but I won't eat it. I'll be strong this time. Now, the more important, heavier hitting thing is a little further in the book. One way to help yourself become more honest with yourself is to inventory your past experiences. Have you ever successfully eaten your trigger food for any period of time? How many times have you tried and failed to eat just one bite? And finally, was it ever worth it? Holy smokes. Should I read that again? Inventory your past experiences. How has this gone in the past? What is my track record with this particular food? Have you ever successfully eaten your trigger food for any period of time? How many times have you tried and failed to eat just one bite? And was it ever worth it? The answer to me is never and no. Have I ever successfully eaten my trigger foods? Meaning successfully, like in a rational, reasonable portion? No. The answer to that, no. How many times have I tried and failed to eat just one bite? Approximately 800 zillion. And finally, was it ever worth it? No. No, it was not. So, and I'll give you some examples right now from my own life with foods that we would consider totally fine for keto. So, many of you, I'm sure, know that you have a problem with nuts, for example, or nut butters. Some of you, it's cheese, and these, because nuts and cheese are probably the two most common binge foods or trigger foods that are commonly consumed on a low-carb or keto diet. Those can be issues for me, but really, I had to add a couple of things to my red light food list, and I've had to add a couple of more things lately that I think it's actually helping me. I'm becoming a little stricter with my diet. I'm giving up, at least temporarily, some things that I really, really love that I cannot control. And two of them, for example, are blue cheese salad dressing, and ranch dressing. And I can eat a massive quantity of this stuff. Do I want some food with my dressing, or do I want some dressing with my food? The serving size, at least in the US on most of these containers, is 2 tablespoons. I think that's about 30 milliliters. I don't even know. I won't even try to guess. 2 tablespoons. And that's great, except Amy Berger doesn't have 2 tablespoons of blue cheese dressing. Amy Berger has a 1/4 cup or 1/3 of a cup of blue cheese dressing. And great, it's low in carbs. It's only got like 1 carb per serving, so that's only a couple grams of carbs. It's several hundred calories, and I hate the C word. I hate it. But for someone who is struggling to lose a little bit of body fat, probably not the best idea to eat a large quantity of something that is essentially almost pure fat. There's very little protein, whatever protein happens to be in the small amount of blue cheese in the dressing, and so some of these fatty dressings for now, for me, are on my red light list. They are not as severe a problem for me as peanuts or peanut butter, or mayonnaise. I always joke about the mayonnaise, or sour cream. Those are like permanent red light foods. The dressings, I might reintroduce them sometime in the future, but for now, I want to see how things go when I don't have any. And so I'm just using condiments now that are much, much lower in fat. I'm using a lot of sugar-free barbecue sauce. There are some light or lower fat dressings that you can buy at the supermarket that are not higher in carbs. Very often they are, because when you take out the fat, in order to make it taste like anything decent, they have to put sugar. They don't always. You just have to read the labels. And sometimes they do put sugar, but if it's 1 or 2 grams, that probably works for me. you know? So anyway, what was I saying with the condiments and the, oh, right. I bought myself, I should show you, but they're in the cabinet way over there. I even purposely sought out these little containers. I got some that are plastic from the dollar store, and then I found cuter silicone ones at World Market that are colored and they're really pretty. That they're these just little tiny cups that I can measure out if I want to. Measure out the 2 tablespoons of dressing, or even with the sugar-free barbecue sauce, just because it's, you know, sugar-free and they're basically fat-free too. I mean, they're very few calories. There's still no reason for me to be eating 1/3 of a cup of it with a pork chop. So I bought these little cute cups to kind of give myself something to look forward to, although that sounds really pathetic, but just maybe like a fun way for me to limit that portion. Actually get my measuring spoon out, get the 2 tablespoons and put it in that cute little cup and have that cute little cup on my plate. So, you know, so far so good. It's working, and I don't really miss the blue cheese dressing. I don't miss the ranch dressing. I don't miss the sour cream. I don't miss the mayo, but I've been without those for much longer. And yeah, I will probably reintroduce them at some point and see how it goes, but you know, try to use that measuring technique. And if I can just measure it out and put the bottle in the fridge and then go to the table and eat, the trouble is when I bring the bottle to the table, because then there's just no limit. I'll just take as many. Oh, I'll just have another little thing. Oh, I'll just take another little squeeze. So it honestly, there are, I think it's the writer Gretchen Rubin who talks about abstainers versus moderators. There are people who are 100% capable of taking 1 tablespoon of mayo, 1 or 2 tablespoons of blue cheese dressing, having a handful of nuts, having 1 slice of cheese. There's plenty of people that can do that. Great. If you are not one of them, you are probably an abstainer, meaning that it's kind of all or nothing. It's no cheese or all the cheese. It's no nuts or the bag of nuts. And so for we abstainers, or us abstainers, whatever is grammatically correct, it's easier to have none at all. It's easier to abstain completely than to have a little portion. Because why? Has it ever worked out that way for you in the past? Ever? Unless you were at a party or in a social setting where it would look a little crazy if you ate a pound of almonds. So maybe you just have 1 at the bowl, you go back for 1, you know, or like at a restaurant where they're only giving you a certain portion. Other than that, unless the environment was controlled for you, have you ever been able to successfully eat a reasonable portion of that red light food or that alcoholic food? And has it ever been worth it? Has the binge, has the massive overconsumption ever been worth it? Did you ever feel good for having done that? I haven't. I sure haven't. Maybe in the moment it is delicious and it does feel good, and that pinball machine in your brain is lighting up with all that dopamine or whatever else is going on up there. Afterward, not so much. Afterward comes the recrimination and the self-loathing and the shame and the negative talk, you know, and that's, we could do a whole separate video on not doing that to yourself. Okay, I ate a ton of stuff that I shouldn't have eaten. I'm going to move on. End of story. You don't have to wallow in the negative feelings, but most of us do. So I just think it is important for some of us to have these hard lines that we do not cross. Now, some of you watching this might not have any problem at all. So this doesn't apply to everybody, but it applies to a lot of people, myself included. And so it just requires some self-honesty and a little reality check. You know your alcoholic foods, you know your binge foods, and you love them. I love pork rinds. I love mayo. I love blue cheese dressing. It's why I can't have them, because I can't control I can't. It's easier for me to have none than it is to get a taste of it and have to force myself to stop, to have to force myself to not want more and more and more, right? What did this say about willpower? Let me go back to that. Carbohydrate addicts should not put their faith in willpower, however determined they are to succeed. Except it's not just true for carbohydrate addicts. It's true for any compulsive overeater. It's true for any food addict. Because I'll tell you what, I can, quote, quote, overeat anything. I can eat a huge amount of steak. I can eat a huge amount of pork loin or chicken. You name it, broccoli, steamed broccoli with nothing on it. I can eat a massive pile of it. But I will stand by saying that the metabolic effects of eating a very large quantity of those foods are very different and not quite as harmful as the metabolic effects of eating an equivalent amount, even an equivalent caloric load of sugar and starch. And that's kind of going back to the video I did recently on processed foods, right? I'm more concerned with the metabolic effects than with anything else, than with the amount of the food or what the food is. So I think that's about all I have to say, but it's okay. Like here's the thing. So it wasn't all I had to say. It's okay to acknowledge that you have no control over certain foods, that there are certain foods that you can't control. That's not a weakness to say like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, I'm so ashamed, I can't stop eating the pretzels, I can't stop eating the pork rinds or the cheese. There's strength in that. That is empowering to recognize and acknowledge, you know what? I can't have pork rinds anymore. I can't have. That's empowering, and it's going to get you better results with your weight loss or maybe with your type 2 diabetes or your metabolic, whatever the issue is. It's very liberating. I think it's liberating to do that. And I haven't had pork rinds since sometime in November, maybe even late October. I don't remember the last date I bought them, but it's been at least that long. And it's not like I haven't had the opportunity to buy them. Every time I'm at the store, there they are. They're cheap. It's not even like they're out of my price range. I don't buy them anymore. I kind of look at them like, oh, there they are. And then I just keep walking. And I'm actually helping Dr. Westman with this new keto food delivery program that we're starting through Duke University. It's almost like a Meals on Wheels, but it's keto. It's for very, disadvantaged, underprivileged people, some of his patients, and it's just kind of, that's all I'll say. We're basically just delivering low carb foods to people's homes. And so a lot of the food is provided and donated, but I pick up some of the food. And so I was at the store last Friday afternoon and I bought 22 bags of pork rinds. And they were sitting in my apartment. I didn't leave them in the car because it's 1,000,000 degrees in North Carolina right now and I didn't want to leave them. So in my apartment, I didn't eat them. I didn't even want to eat them because you know why? I don't eat pork rinds anymore. I don't eat pork rinds. And I've been away from them long enough that I don't crave them. I don't even really desire them. It feels so good to have been liberated from the compulsion and the pull that it's just empowering. And I don't, let's just say I have a lot of self-esteem and self-image stuff to work on. But I will say, in all honesty, I feel proud that I've been able to go this long without pork rinds. And I've been able to go this long without sour cream or with peanuts. It's been years since my #1 big binge food, peanuts and peanut butter. Years. So I miss it a little bit. It's kind of like, oh, it was so good. But I would so much rather have this feeling of liberation and freedom from that addiction, freedom from, I can't compare it to slavery, because I'm just, with what's going on in the world, I'm not going to say I was a slave to that food. Like, that's an insult to, you know, but the hold those foods had over me, as much as delicious as they are, and as much as I know I would love that flavor and that taste and texture, I'm so much happier with the freedom and the liberation and the self-empowerment I feel of not being tied to those foods anymore. So that's it, and thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Let's get the numbers up. I see other videos of nonsense that are getting, 84,000 views. And these videos, not so much. But if you find them helpful, if you think other people who you know that eat low carb and keto would find them helpful, feel free to share, send the links, email them to your friends, post them in your social media groups. And that's it. I really appreciate you watching. Take care.